At this chapter begins the story of Joseph, who, in every subsequent chapter but one to the end of this book, makes the greatest figure. He was Jacob's eldest son by his beloved wife Rachel, born, as many eminent men were, of a mother that had been long barren. His story is so remarkably divided between his humiliation and his exaltation that we cannot avoid seeing something of Christ in it, who was first humbled and then exalted, and, in many instances, so as to answer the type of Joseph. It also shows the lot of Christians, who must through many tribulations enter into the kingdom. In this chapter we have, first, the malice his brethren bore against him. They hated him, first, because he informed his father of their wickedness, verses 1 and 2. Second, because his father loved him, verses 3 and 4. Third, because he dreamed of his dominion over them, verses 5 and 11. Second, the mischiefs his brethren designed and did to him. First, the kind visit he made them gave an opportunity, verses 12 to 17. Second, they designed to slay him but determined to starve him, verses 18 to 24. Third, they changed their purpose and sold him for a slave, verses 25 to 28. Fourth, they made their father believe that he was torn in pieces, verses 29 to 35. Fifth, he was sold into Egypt to Potiphar, verse 36. And all this was working together for good. The history of Joseph, 1729 BC. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. Moses has no more to say of the Edomites, unless as they happen to fall in Israel's way, but now applies himself closely to the story of Jacob's family. These are the generations of Jacob. His is not a barren genealogy as that of Esau, chapter 36:1, but a memorable, useful history. Here is, first, Jacob a sojourner with his father Isaac, who has yet living, verse 1. We shall never be at home till we come to heaven. Second, Joseph a shepherd feeding the flock with his brethren, verse 2. Though he was his father's darling, yet he was not brought up in idleness or delicacy. Those do not truly love their children that do not inure them to business and labor and mortification. The fondling of children is with good reason commonly called the spoiling of them. Those that are trained up to do nothing are likely to be good for nothing. Third, Joseph beloved by his father, verse 3, partly for his dear mother's sake that was dead, and partly for his own sake, because he was the greatest comfort of his old age. Probably he waited on him and was more observant of him than the rest of his sons. He was the son of the ancient, some say. That is, when he was a child, he was as grave and discreet as if he had been an old man, a child but not childish. Jacob proclaimed his affection to him by dressing him finer than the rest of his children. He made him a coat of diverse colors, which probably was significant of further honors intended him. Note that, though those children are happy that have that in them that justly recommends them to their parents' particular love, yet it is the prudence of parents not to make a difference between one child and another, unless there be a great and manifest cause given for it by the children's dutifulness or undutifulness. Paternal government must be impartial and managed with a steady hand. 4. Joseph hated by his brethren, first because his father loved him. When parents make a difference, children soon take notice of it, and it often occasions feuds and quarrels in families. Second, because he brought to his father their evil report. Jacob's sons did that when they were from under his eye, which they durst not have done if they had been at home with him. But Joseph gave his father an account of their bad carriage, that he might reprove and restrain them, not as a malicious talebearer to sow discord, but as a faithful brother who, when he durst not admonish himself, represented their faults to one that had authority to admonish them. Note that, 1. It is common for friendly monitors to be looked upon as enemies. Those that hate to be reformed hate those who would reform them. Proverbs 9:8. 2. It is common for those who are beloved of God to be hated by the world. Whom heaven blesses, hell curses. To those whom God speaks comfortably, wicked men will not speak peaceably. It is said here of Joseph, the lad was with the sons of Bilhah. Some read it, and he was servant to them, they made him their drudge.
5. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaves stood round about, and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us, or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him, and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying. Here, 1. Joseph relates the prophetical dreams he had, verse 6, 7, 9, and 10. Though he was now very young, about 17 years old, yet he was pious and devout and well inclined, and this fitted him for God's gracious discoveries of himself to him. Joseph had a great deal of trouble before him, and therefore God gave him betimes this prospect of his advancement to support and comfort him under the long and grievous troubles with which he was to be exercised. Thus, Christ had a joy set before him, and so have Christians. Note, God has ways of preparing his people beforehand for the trials which they cannot foresee, but which he has an eye to in the comforts with which he furnishes them. His dreams were, 1. That his brethren's sheaves all bowed to his, intimating upon what occasion they should be brought to do homage to him, namely in seeking to him for corn. Their empty sheaves should bow to his full one. 2. That the sun and the moon and the 11 stars did obeisance to him. Verse 9. Joseph was more of a prophet than a politician, else he would have kept this to himself when he could not but know that his brethren did already hate him, and that this would but more exasperate them. But if he told it in his simplicity, yet God directed it for the mortification of his brethren. Observe, Joseph dreamed of his preferment, but he did not dream of his imprisonment. Thus many young people, when they are setting out in the world, think of nothing but prosperity and pleasure, and never dream of trouble. 2. His brethren take it very ill, and and more enraged against him. Verse 8. Shalt thou indeed reign over us? See here, 1. How truly they interpreted his dream that he should reign over them. Those become the expositors of his dream who were enemies to the accomplishment of it, as in Gideon's story, Judges 7:13 and 14. They perceived that he spoke of them, Matthew 21:45. The event exactly answered to this interpretation, chapter 42:6, etc. 2. How scornfully they resented it. Shalt thou who art but one reign over us who are many? Thou who art the youngest over us who are older? Note, the reign and dominion of Jesus Christ, our Joseph, have been and are despised and striven against by a carnal and unbelieving world, who cannot endure to think that this man should reign over them. The dominion also of the upright in the morning of the resurrection is thought of with the utmost disdain. 3. His father gives him a gentle rebuke for it, yet observes the saying, verse 10 and 11. Probably he checked him for it to lessen the offense which his brethren would be apt to take at it, yet he took notice of it more than he seemed to do. He insinuated that it was but an idle dream because his mother was brought in, who had been dead some time since, whereas the sun, moon, and 11 stars signify no more than the whole family that should have a dependence upon him and be glad to be beholden to him. Note, the faith of God's people in God's promises is often sorely shaken by their misunderstanding the promises and then suggesting the improbabilities that attend the performance. But God is doing His own work, and will do it, whether we understand Him aright or no.
Jacob, like Mary, Luke 2:51, kept these things in his heart, and no doubt remembered them long afterwards, when the event answered to the prediction. 12. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. 13. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said unto him, Here am I. 14. And he said unto him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, They are departed hence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren, and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit. And we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. Here is, the kind visit which Joseph, in obedience to his father's command, made to his brethren, who were feeding the flock at Shechem, many miles off. Some suggest that they went thither on purpose, expecting that Joseph would be sent to see them, and that then they should have an opportunity to do him a mischief. However, Joseph and his father had both of them more of the innocence of the dove than of the wisdom of the serpent, else he never had come thus into the hands of those that hated him. But God designed it all for good. See in Joseph an instance, 1. Of dutifulness to his father. Though he was his father's darling, yet he was made and was willing to be his father's servant. How readily does he wait his father's orders? Here I am, verse 13. Note that those children that are best beloved by their parents should be most obedient to their parents, and then their love is well bestowed and well returned. 2. Of kindness to his brethren. Though he knew they hated him and envied him, yet he made no objections against his father's commands, either from the distance of the place or the danger of the journey, but cheerfully embraced the opportunity of showing his respect to his brethren. Note that it is a very good lesson, though it is learnt with difficulty and rarely practiced, to love those that hate us, if our relations do not their duty to us, yet we must not be wanting in our duty to them. This is thankworthy. Joseph was sent by his father to Shechem to see whether his brethren were well there, and whether the country had not risen upon them and destroyed them, in revenge of their barbarous murder of the Shechemites some years before. But Joseph, not finding them there, went to Dothan, which showed that he undertook this journey not only in obedience to his father, for then he might have returned when he missed them at Shechem, having done what his father told him, but out of love to his brethren, and therefore he sought diligently till he found them. Thus let brotherly love continue, and let us give proofs of it. The bloody and malicious plot of his brethren against him, who rendered good for evil, and for his love were his adversaries. Observe 1. How deliberate they were in the contrivance of this mischief. When they saw him afar off, they conspired against him. Verse 18. It was not in a heat or upon a sudden provocation that they thought to slay him, but from malice prepense and in cold blood. Note that whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer, for he will be one if he have an opportunity. 1 John 3:15. Malice is a most mischievous thing, and is in danger of making bloody work where it is harbored and indulged. The more there is of a project and contrivance in a sin, the worse it is. It is bad to do evil, but worse to devise it. 2. How cruel they were in their design. Nothing less than his blood would satisfy them. Come and let us slay him. Verse 20. Note that the old enmity hunts for the precious life. It is the bloodthirsty that hate the upright. Proverbs 29:10. And it is the blood of the saints that the harlot is drunk with. 3. How scornfully they reproached him for his dreams. Verse 19. This dreamer cometh. And verse 20, we shall see what will become of his dreams. This shows what it was that fretted and enraged them. They could not endure to think of doing homage to him. This was what they were plotting to prevent by the murder of him. Note that men that fret and rage at God's counsels are impiously aiming to defeat them, but they imagine a vain thing. Psalm 2:1-3. God's counsels will stand. 4. How they agreed to keep one another's counsel, and to cover the murder with a lie. We will say, some evil beast hath devoured him, whereas in this consulting to devour him, they prove themselves worse than the most evil beasts. For evil beasts prey not on those of their own kind, but they were tearing a piece of themselves. Reuben's project to deliver him. Verse 21-22. Note that God can raise up friends for his people, even among their enemies, for he has all hearts in his hands. Reuben, of all the brothers, had most reason to be jealous of Joseph, for he was the firstborn, and so entitled to those distinguishing favors which Jacob was conferring to Joseph. Yet he proves his best friend. Reuben's temper seems to have been soft and effeminate, which had betrayed him to the sin of uncleanness, while the temper of the next two brothers, Simeon and Levi, was fierce, which betrayed them to the sin of murder, a sin that Reuben startled at the thought of. Note our natural constitution should be guarded against those sins to which it is most inclined, and improved, as Reuben's here, against those sins to which it is most averse. Reuben was a proposal which they thought would effectually answer their intention of destroying Joseph, and yet which he designed should answer his intention of rescuing Joseph out of their hands and restoring him to his father, probably hoping thereby to recover his father's favor, which he had lately lost. But God overruled all to serve his own purpose of making Joseph an instrument to save much people alive. Joseph here was a type of Christ. Though he was the beloved son of his father, and hated by a wicked world, yet the Father sent him out of his bosom to visit us in great humility and love. He came from heaven to earth to seek and save us. Yet then malicious plots were laid against him. He came to his own, and his own not only received him not, but consulted against him. This is the heir, come and let us kill him. Crucify him, crucify him. This he submitted to, in pursuance of his design to redeem and save us.
23. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. 24. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, there was no water in it. 25. And they sat down to eat bread. And they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. 26. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? 27. Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. 28. Then there passed by Midianites merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. 29. And Reuben returned unto the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. 20 and 30. And he returned unto his brethren, and said, The child is not, and I, whither shall I go? We have here the execution of their plot against Joseph. 1. They stripped him, each striving to seize the envied coat of many colors, verse 23. Thus, in imagination, they degraded him from the birthright, of which perhaps this was the badge, grieving him, affronting their father, and making themselves sport while they insulted over him. Now Joseph wears the fine coat. Thus our Lord Jesus was stripped of his seamless coat, and thus his suffering saints have first been industriously divested of their privileges and honors, and then made the offscouring of all things. 2. They went about to starve him, throwing him into a dry pit to perish there with hunger and cold. So cruel were their tender mercies. Verse 24. Note, where envy reigns, pity is banished, and humanity itself is forgotten. Proverb 27:4. So full of deadly poison is malice, that the more barbarous anything is, the more grateful it is. Now Joseph begged for his life in the anguish of his soul, chapter 42:21, entreated by all imaginable endearments that they would be content with his coat and spare his life. He pleads innocence, relation, affection, submission. He weeps and makes supplication, but all in vain. Reuben alone relents and intercedes for him, chapter 42:22. But he cannot prevail to save Joseph from the horrible pit in which they resolve he shall die by degrees and be buried alive. Is this he to whom his brethren must do homage? Note, God's providences often seem to contradict his purposes, even when they are serving them and working at a distance towards the accomplishment of them. 4. They sold him. A caravan of merchants very opportunely passed by, Providence so ordering it, and Judah made the motion that they should sell Joseph to them to be carried far enough off into Egypt, where in all probability he would be lost and never heard of more. 1. Judah proposed it in compassion to Joseph, verse 26. What profit is it if we slay our brother? It will be less guilt and more gain to sell him. Note, when we are tempted to sin, we should consider the unprofitability of it. It is what there is nothing to be gotten by. 2. They acquiesced in it because they thought that if he was sold for a slave, he would never be a lord. If sold into Egypt, he would never be their lord. Yet all this was working towards it. Note, the wrath of man shall praise God, and the remainder of wrath he will restrain. Psalm 76:10. Joseph's brethren were wonderfully restrained from murdering him, and their selling him as wonderfully turned to God's praise. As Joseph was sold by the contrivance of Judah for 20 pieces of silver, so was our Lord Jesus for 30, and by one of the same name, too, Judas. Reuben, it seems, had gone away from his brethren when they sold Joseph, intending to come round some other way to the pit and help Joseph out of it and return him safely to his father. This was a kind project, but if it had taken effect, what had become of God's purpose concerning his preferment in Egypt? Note, there are many devices in man's heart, many devices of the enemies of God's people, to destroy them, and of their friends to help them, which perhaps are both disappointed, as these were. But the counsel of the Lord that shall stand. Reuben thought himself undone because the child was sold. I, whither shall I go? Verse 30. He, being the eldest, his father would expect from him an account of Joseph. But as it proved, they would have all been undone if he had not been sold.
31. And they took Joseph's coat, and killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the coat in the blood. 32. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father, and said, This have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. 33. And he knew it, and said, It is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. 34. And Jacob rent his clothes, and put sackcloth upon his loins, and mourned for his son many days. 35. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, and he said, For I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. 36. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. Joseph would soon be missed. Great inquiry would be made for him, and therefore his brethren have a further design to make the world believe that Joseph was torn in pieces by a wild beast. And this they did, 1, to clear themselves, that they might not be suspected to have done him any mischief. Note, we have all learned of Adam to cover our transgression, Job 31:33. When the devil has taught men to commit one sin, he then teaches them to conceal it with another, theft and murder with lying and perjury. But he that covers his sin shall not prosper long. Joseph's brethren kept their own and one another's counsel for some time, but their villainy came to light at last, and it is here published to the world, and the remembrance of it transmitted to every age. 2. To grieve their good father. It seems designed by them on purpose to be revenged upon him for his distinguishing love of Joseph. It was contrived on purpose to create the utmost vexation to him. They sent him Joseph's coat of many colors, with one color more than it had had, a bloody color, verse 32. They pretended they had found it in the fields, and Jacob himself must be scornfully asked, Is this thy son's coat? Now the badge of his honor is the discovery of his fate, and it is rashly inferred from the bloody coat that Joseph without doubt is rent in pieces. Love is always apt to fear the worst concerning the person beloved. There is a love that casteth out fear, but that is a perfect love. Now let those that know the heart of a parent suppose the agonies of poor Jacob, and put their souls into his soul's stead. How strongly does he represent to himself the direful idea of Joseph's misery. Sleeping or waking, he imagines he sees the wild beast setting upon Joseph, thinks he hears his piteous shrieks when the lion roared against him, makes himself tremble and grow chill many a time when he fancies how the beast sucked his blood, tore him limb from limb, and left no remains of him but the coat of many colors to carry the tittings. And no doubt it added no little to the grief that he had exposed him by sending him all alone on this dangerous journey which proved so fatal to him. This cuts him to the heart, and he is ready to look upon himself as an accessory to the death of his son. Now, 1, endeavors were used to comfort him. His sons basely pretended to do it, verse 35, but miserable, hypocritical comforters were they all. Had they really desired to comfort him, they might have easily done it by telling him the truth. Joseph is alive. He is indeed sold into Egypt, but it will be an easy thing to send thither and ransom him. This would have loosened his sackcloth and girded him with gladness presently. I wonder their countenances did not betray their guilt, and with what face they could pretend to condole with Jacob on the death of Joseph when they knew he was alive. Note, the heart is strangely hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. But 2, it was all in vain. Jacob refused to be comforted, verse 35. He was an obstinate mourner, resolved to go down to the grave mourning. It was not a sudden transport of passion like that of David, "Would God I had died for thee, my son, my son." But, like Job, he hardened himself in sorrow. Note 1. Great affection to any creature does not prepare for so much the greater affliction when it is either removed from us or embittered to us. Inordinate love commonly ends in immoderate grief. As much as the sway of the pendulum throws one way, so much it will throw the other way. 2. Those that consult neither the comfort of their souls nor the credit of their religion, that are determined in their sorrow upon any occasion whatsoever. We must never say, "We will go to our grave mourning," because we know not what joyful days Providence may yet reserve for us, and it is our wisdom and duty to accommodate ourselves to Providence. 3. We often perplex ourselves with imaginary troubles. We fancy things worse than they are, and then afflict ourselves more than we need. Sometimes there needs no more to comfort us than to undeceive us. It is good to hope the best. 2. The Ishmaelites and Midianites having bought Joseph only to make their market of him, here we have him sold again, with gain enough for the merchants, no doubt, to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. Jacob was lamenting the loss of his life. Had he known all, he would have lamented, though not so passionately, the loss of liberty. Shall Jacob's freeborn son exchange the best robe of his family for the livery of an Egyptian lord and all the marks of servitude? How soon was the land of Egypt made a house of bondage to the seed of Jacob? Note, it is the wisdom of parents not to bring up their children too delicately, because they know not to what hardships and mortifications Providence may reduce them before they die. Jacob little thought that ever his beloved Joseph would be thus bought and sold for a servant.